Roll up in the club and shit.
So here's the deal, I'm a really big fan of LADA and Vaz. Why, you ask? Because the LADA and the Vaz, they are the essence of what a car is supposed to be. It will get the job done. It will take you from point A to point B very well, but that's also the only thing it will do. Let me put it this way, if you were to create, let's say, a children's book with an illustration for every letter in the alphabet, you'd maybe have an airplane for the letter A and possibly the word boat for letter B. For letter C, you'd obviously choose a car, but it wouldn't just have any car illustrated on that page. The car on that page would be a Vaz 2108 or LADA Samara, as it's called everywhere else outside of Russia. More on all these interesting names for this car later on in this video. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to take the Vaz 2108 or the LADA Samara, it's the same car, and we're going to modernize it into a 2020 model, which is going to be really interesting because the original car didn't really have any identifiable design features to go with. The Vaz 2108, known as the LADA Samara in much of Western Europe, codenamed and later officially badged as the LADA Sputnik in its native Russia, was a series of small family cars produced by Soviet and Russia by vehicle manufacturer AvtoVaz under the LADA brand name between 1984 all the way up until 2013. The model name Samara was originally only used for exported models in the Soviet Union. As just mentioned, the named model was called Sputnik until 1991, when the sedan version of the Samara entered production using the export name, which was Samara. It was the first front-wheel drive production car built in the Soviet Union after the Luaz 969V. You just gotta love these creative names they used for their own cars. Sounds more like a barcode than an actual car model. The Samara had been modified and restyled during the years of production before it was finally discontinued in December of 2013. The Samara was to build on the success of the traditional Fiat 124 base range by providing a car that combined a very robust build and ease of maintenance with a modern style. It was produced in various 3, 4, and 5 door designs with 1.1, 1.3, and a bigger 1.5 liter gas engine. LADA has hoped that the Samara would enable it to compete for sales in the mainstream European car market. It was the second autonomous design from AvtoVaz, with the first one being the incredible, legendary Niva SUV. And the first LADA car to not be based on Fiat-derived mechanicals. During its development, Vaz designers paid careful attention to the contemporary Renault 9, Volkswagen Golf, Ford Escort Mark III, Opel Kadett, and the Volvo 340, all of which would be the new Vaz 2108's main competitors in the market space. The first car left the production line on 18th of December in 1984. These, the 3-door hatchbacks, the only models that were available at first were these 3-door hatchbacks, and they were powered by a 1.3 liter inline 4 and were fitted with a 4-speed gearbox in these early models. And this is a car I personally very much desire to own one day because I think it's so cool. A 5-speed manual became standard in 1987. there wasn't much power here to speak of. It ranged from 53 horsepower to 140 horsepower over the years of production, with a top speed of around 97 miles per hour or 156 kilometers per hour. Now, the branding of the saloon version of the Vos can be a little bit confusing, since pretty much every country it was sold in had a different name for it. For example, in France, it was called the Sagona. In Germany, the Forma. Belgium decided to call it the Diva, and even offered a kit that converted the car into a convertible for cruising down the road on those hot summer days in the Belgian countryside. It seems like it was settled on the name Samara from the early 1990s. Basically, it's a car with many names, and trying to figure it all out will make your head spin. But hey, who cares about any of that? Let's talk about the design. So here we have the beautiful 3-door LADA Samara, and I'm a big fan of this car, as I said, because of the robustness and also the simpleness of this car. Just look at this black plastic bumper down here, and the lights are pretty much rectangles, both front and rear. So this presents two challenges here. The first one is we don't really have any sort of design language or identity to go with to create a 2020 model, because it's such a simple design. And the second part is we kind of have a blank canvas as well. We can create whatever we want here, as long as we keep the proportions of the car and the general. I think for this redesign, we're going to go with the feel of the LADA brand. What does LADA really stand for? And this was a pretty successful rally car as well. So I want to have some rally feeling in there, and the face shouldn't be too aggressive. I don't want to have an angry face, but instead I want the face to radiate confidence and pride, and kind of give you that feeling of, I don't give a crap what you think about me, I'm good enough as I am.
I must break you.
So what do we need to do here to redesign this and turn this into a 2020 model? Well, you see all this plastic here. We have plastic down here around the wheels on the front part, not on the rear. We have some metal here instead, but all this plastic of course needs to go. And I want to have kind of a big opening in the front, and the eyes of the car is going to be inverted like this instead of the regular way, which would be like this. I want to have them be inverted because I think that suits this personality better. It's more of a cool way to create the eyes of the car instead of making them squinty like every other car. I want to have this be a little bit different. And then inside of these graphical elements, which are the headlights, I want to have some cool LEDs. And on top of that, I want to have the same thing here, obviously, but for the front here, I want to frame it somehow. I want it to have a frame, and of course something that lowers it to the ground here, because this generation sits way too high. You can see that the body stops at halfway down the tires here, same at the back. So we need to bring this body down to a lower point so that we meet modern standards. So I want to have some sort of lip down here, maybe a gray one that contrasts the black and the red that we're going to have in the front of this car. But basically what this is going to be a redesign where we just play around with different shapes and see what we come up with, and see what sticks. Because we can't have too much styling in this car because it is a LADA, but we can play around with their current style. And if you look at modern LADAs, they have some creases in the body here. They go something like this, so we can add some play around with some graphical features, some lines for the sake of styling and nothing else. So it's not a Volkswagen where every line needs to have a purpose. We can have some fun here and play around with this and see what we come up with. So with that said, let's start on this blank canvas, which is the Vos 2108, and let's see how this is going to turn out. guys, that's the redesign of the Vase 2108 or the LADA Samara, and I'm really happy with how this turned out. The challenge here was I had to experiment a lot with different shapes and still try to keep the styling of the car to a minimum, because it's a, let's just say it's a car for the people. It's supposed to be very functional and hold up with time and very easy maintenance. So we don't want to add too many things on it just for the sake of making it look cool. We want to keep it very, very simple and in line with LADA's philosophy in general. And the best part about making these redesigns is when I'm stuck for an hour or so and I can't come up with some solution to the problems that I have with some of these redesigns. This was one of these, for example. And then you take a break, you go and take a coffee, and then you come back and you look at it and you just put some lines down and you start to see how everything builds up, and you can start to connect some lines and everything starts to flow. It always happens. It doesn't matter what car I'm working on. It can be a car that I'm thinking I have no idea how to create this redesign, but the more I push the car and the more I take a break and come back and take a break and come back, the more this kind of builds up into what it becomes in the end, which is the final redesign. It always works out somehow, and that's the most fun part of these redesigns, that no matter how hard I think it's going to be, I feel like somehow they always work out. And I'm honestly getting more and more proud about these redesigns now, because I'm putting in more thought into them and what I want them to be, because it has a lot to do with not just a new model of the old model, not just a redesign of an 80s 90s model for a 2020 model. You got to think about the brand itself. What is the philosophy of the brand that you're designing? Stuff like that goes into the design that I really didn't think about before. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this redesign just as much as I enjoyed finally getting in the flow with this. And if you did, hit the like button. It really means a lot to me, and it means a lot to the YouTube algorithm, which means that it's going to be pushed to more people, which is just fantastic. And if you're new to the channel, browse all the redesigns we made so far, over 100, 200 maybe. I have no idea how many we've done. You can go back and check out all of them in my library of videos. I'm TheSketchMonkey. Thanks again, and I will see you in the next video.